All right, this morning we are going to get going on some lamb shanks. Now, this is the leg of a lamb. This would be the calf area. This is where it's connected to the foot. You can see that there's a ton of connective tissue in here and some silver skin and stuff like that. For that reason, anytime we cook a lamb shank, low and slow with lots of liquid is going to be the best process. We're going to cook it in the oven here, but a equally easy way to cook it is in the crock pot. It'll work the same. This cut is a little bit too big to fit in my crock pot dish, so that's why we're opting for the oven this time, but either will work. Additionally, when I do this, I like to keep things pretty budget friendly. This is a fairly expensive cut of meat, so for this time, you might consider this more of a special occasion meal than your average meal. So what I'm going to do first is I've got my skillet plate getting warm on the stove. I'm going to hit this and get every side of it seared. So if you got to hold it a little bit while it's cooking, manipulate your angles a little bit, but we want to sear this up real well. Okay, so now that we've got our leg browned up, again, we got kind of an awkward shape. You're never going to get it perfect, but just get everything as best as you can. Now that we got that done, we're going to put it in a baking dish and start on our liquids here. So in here, I just have some homemade broth. I don't remember if it's chicken or beef broth, but either will work just fine. To that, I'm going to add some crushed tomatoes. Just a little bit of red wine. And we're going to add some seasonings. In here, I've just got salt, pepper, oregano, basil, onion powder, and garlic powder. And then very carefully, we're going to transfer this to our baking dish. We want enough so at least most of our meat is covered. It doesn't have to be completely covered. Obviously with this dish, that's never going to happen. But this should be about what we're shooting for. To that, I'm just going to add some parsnips. I just peeled and chunked these. I didn't do anything special to them. And then I'm going to add a little bit of onion. Now I'm going to wrap this with tin foil. Now all I'm going to do is get this in the oven. I have that preset at 200 degrees. We're basically going to let this cook all day. I've got a little bit of extra liquid. I don't anticipate a ton of liquid loss, but I'm going to reserve this and we can add a little bit back in as needed. But I'm going to check it every couple hours just to make sure we're doing well, but I don't anticipate taking this out for 6 to 8 hours here. All right, at this point we have had our lamb shank cooking for about 8 hours. What I did is after 4 hours I just flipped it to make sure that we get both sides a little bit more evenly. But now we are going to carefully pull our lamb shank. We're gonna set this off to the side for a minute. This is a pretty big hunk of meat, so I'm not worried about it getting cold. On the stove, I have just a little bit of butter in a saucepan. I'm gonna throw some flour into that, get a roux going, get that mixed up, and then add our tomato sauce here, and we're just gonna thicken it up just a little bit. In addition to that, I just have some potatoes boiling so we can make kind of like a mashed potatoes to put on the side. So again, I'm gonna get this in the saucepan, get it going, thicken it up just a little bit, and we are almost done. All right, now we are ready to get it on a plate. If you have smaller individual sized lamb shanks, you can just plate them whole. If you have a larger one like I did, you can carve it up a little bit. Because we've been cooking it so long, most of it should pull away from the bone pretty easy, but don't be afraid to use a knife in the spots where the connective tissue is still a little bit tough. Then put our sauce on top and we're ready to go. If there are leftovers on this one, I do highly recommend storing the meat and the potatoes in the sauce itself. That will help to keep it from getting dry as it sits in the fridge. But it looks fancy. Like I said, it's a little bit on the more expensive end, but it's incredibly simple. All it requires is really time. And there you have it.